Welcome to Heritage Acres Homestead. I'm Chas. Here you'll find our family as we strive to live a life that pleases the Lord. We do our best to make the most out of what we've been given, so we'd like to invite you to come along and join us on our journey.
Hey y'all, and welcome back to Heritage Acres Homestead. I am Chas, and I'm thankful that you're with us today. So today I'd like to talk to you about something that I get questions about all the time, and that is, how do you build a pantry? And I'm not talking about construction here. I'm talking about they want to know what to buy, what to fill it with, and as simple as this sounds, I'm going to say it really depends on the person. But I'm going to give you some guidelines, and hopefully you can sit down, make you a list. And of course, what I share with you is not an exhaustive list. You're going to need to write down things that you and your family personally use that I may not, and vice versa. So I just want you to be thinking about that. And like I said, people ask me this quite a bit because, you may see me at the grocery store if you're local. One, I go to see my kids. If I'm out, I usually will stop by there so I can see my kids. I know, but I like them, so I want to see them. I also look for deals. Usually I go through the outside skirts of the grocery store. Very, very rarely do I go through the middle aisles, because the middle aisles are your processed food aisles, and the outskirts are, you got, usually it's the produce and the meat and the dairy, and sometimes I'll look in the freezer. I actually went through the other day and found organic fire roasted tomatoes that were like less than half off. And even though I do put up a lot of tomatoes myself, I bought quite a bit of those because it's just another nice thing to have on hand, especially when they're affordable. And they were organic, so that gave me the, hey, let's do this. So like I said, this is not going to be an exhaustive list, and it's going to, vary from person to person. But I want to give you some guidelines to go by, and then you can begin, making your list, which I love lists. So that's, right up my alley. And then, even making a list of your favorite foods, like foods that you cook for your family all the time, or that you're going to start cooking for your family all the time. So let me pause right there. My kids, when they were little, we watched DVDs, or we would play video games occasionally. So when anybody needed to stop anything, no matter what it was, it didn't even have to be electronic. They would say pause, and they still do pause, to signify let's stop and talk about something else, or let's stop where I can do this real quick, or whatever. So it's something that we do quite a bit. But pause on that, and let's go back just a little bit and talk about this. If you don't cook the majority of your meals already, there's going to be a bit of a learning curve for you as well as your family. Because if you're eating a lot of processed things, like things that come in a box and you just toss them in the oven, there's going to be a bit of a relearning for you and your family, your taste buds, because prepackaged foods are filled with flavor enhancers to make your brain believe this is just so incredibly good and delicious, and make it taste good when it really doesn't. Like, okay, let me give you an example. Now, this is not for everybody, but it kind of is for me. So, I drank soda for a long time. I'd give it up for a little bit, and I'd have one every once in a while, and give it for a little bit, and have one every once in a while. And for the most part, I hardly ever drink soda anymore. I do enjoy like sparkling water or seltzers or things like that. If I want that kind of carbonation kick, I'll drink that. Well, I think it was 4th of July. 4th of July, we went somewhere, and I decided I'd take a soda. I mean, we're celebrating, and oh, there came the rainstorm. I guess it did show up. We're celebrating, so I get a Sprite, my drink of choice. I don't like the dark ones. I'm not a Dr. Pepper, Coke, and I don't like any of that. I like, Sprite. It did not taste good to me. I think because I've been away from that kind of thing for so long, it just did not taste good. And I think that's what happens a lot of times when we are pulling away from those conveniency or, junk foody things that we're used to. When we start pulling away from them, they don't taste like we remember. So it may not be for you. You may crack open a soda and think, oh my gracious, what have I been missing? This tastes so good. But it's probably going to be because it hasn't been that long if you're still thinking that. But I don't want you to get discouraged if it's a process for your family. I'm not telling you to go cold turkey. Never make anything that you used to make. There's a family favorite of ours that was my favorite meal growing up. I made it for our family at least once or twice a month as the kids were growing up. And it was just something that I made all the time. And it was chicken casserole. Now, our chicken casserole, it consisted of, you cook a whole chicken, you debone it, you keep some of the broth, then you take cream of mushroom and cream of chicken soup and add that to sour cream, and mix that together as this creamy layer that goes on top of the chicken. And then you take Ritz crackers and crumble them up on top of that. Well, as we know now, all the cream of chicken is full of MSG and just garbage stuff. And then our Ritz crackers are GMO, bioengineered garbage too. And it's discouraging because it was something that I would still probably eat some today if someone were to give it to me. But do I cook it for my family very much anymore? I don't. Because I've yet to find an alternative to taste like that. But again, I believe a lot of it is up here because those flavor enhancers, they trick our brain. And that's what they're designed to do, to make our brain crave them, want them more, to think that other things don't taste as good as these things do. So I guess that was a little bit of a rabbit trail, but like I was saying, I don't expect you to go cold turkey, whole hog into 100% from scratch cooking. But if this is a desire of yours, then you can begin by taking little steps. So if you're already cooking some things at home, super duper, that's a good start. So what you need to do to build this pantry, we're kind of getting back on track now, is to make your lists. All right, so I'm going to give you kind of an overview, and this, like I said, is not an exhaustive list. We've got an oil and vinegar category. We've got a spices and herbs category. Cans/jars category. Now these are pre-purchased ones, or they can be ones that you can or put up yourself. A condiment section. Now if you're making most of your condiments, that's good, but it may fall over into that you need this oil or this thing to make those condiments. You see what I'm saying? Baking supplies. That's where your flours and your sugars and things like that are going to come into play. Your grains, I guess that's going to also incorporate your flours. Beans, produce, and that can be dried. It can also be fresh. Dried fruits, if you keep any of those on hand. I keep raisins, usually some dried dates, and I really like dried cranberries, but I'll tell you something on how to do that in a minute. And then nuts. And so, like I said, that's not an exhaustive list, and that doesn't even touch your protein sources, you know, like your meats or whatever. That's just a beginner section. And when I say my pantry, it's mainly like one cabinet I have for the bulk of things. My, I have more in like 5-gallon buckets, or like over by the stove, I have a little drawer for my spices. Something, I guess salt will go in my baking supplies. You need salt too. So let's go from here and talk about the lists, okay? What I'd love to do, and I don't know that I'm gonna have this ready for you by the time my video goes up, because it's kind of late in the week already. I've been waiting for my voice to get really good and strong again, and it's finally there. And so I waited till Friday to make the video. Anyways, let's start. So our first category let's talk about is, say, oil and vinegar. All right, so for me, oil and vinegar, I'm also going to call this like fats and vinegar. The fats or the oils I keep on hand pretty much all the time are olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil, butter, let's see what else. Oh, lard. I like to have lard. And I don't always have this. I like it when I do. I like ghee. Ghee is something you can make from your butter. Everybody used to just say it was clarified butter, but people are saying now it's not clarified butter. It's basically when you cook the butter down and the butter solids separate, and you pull those solids off, and then, or the milk solids separate, and then you're left with just a very beautiful, clear, clarified butter, basically. And it's got a nutty flavor. It cooks at a higher temperature than butter. And so ghee, I think I might have a short made on how to make ghee. If I don't, I know it's on Instagram. So there are some fats. Now, like I said, this is not exhaustive. You will notice that I don't use vegetable oil, canola oil, things like that. I do not use because I believe they're not beneficial to the body. They're inflammatory, and I don't use them. For vinegars, I usually keep about 2 or 3 kinds. I keep white vinegar because I use that with pickling. I use that with cleaning sometimes, and I also use it with, like, there's certain dishes that use white vinegar. Balsamic vinegar. Love me some balsamic vinegar. I keep that on hand. And then, of course, apple cider vinegar. I use that quite a bit as well. So those are 3 different vinegars that I do keep on hand. Again, Now, when you make this list, you're going to write down what your family will use, not what my family's using. Don't buy everything just because that's what I use. Buy what you use. Or make your list for what you use. And then if you don't have all those things, when you do go to the grocery store, if you have $5 or $10 extra dollars, buy something, to put in your pantry that you need. And whether it be spices or some baking supplies, or some fats or vinegars, any of those. And then maybe just try to set yourself aside a little bit of money to help build that pantry up. Let's move on. Spices and herbs. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and put salt and pepper in here. And salt can be twofold. All right, now I adore Redmond's real salt. That's what I use across the board for pretty much everything. If I put salt in my water, it's Redmonds. If I put salt on my food, it's Redmonds. If I, cook with it, bake with it, it's all Redmonds. Even pickle with it, I use Redmonds. Canning, I use Redmonds. I'm not sponsored, so don't think. I will put a link in the bottom because I do buy my Redmond's real salt by the 25-pound bag. And then I transfer it to a 5-gallon bucket with a gamma seal, and I keep that in my laundry room and pull from it as need be. Oh, also, I use it when I make cheese. I use it for pretty much everything. Now, because there's few things that I'm bougie about, but I do enjoy flaky salt occasionally. And I was at a thrift store, like a thrift food store, and I saw some Maldon salt, and it's a finishing salt. Do not cook with this salt. I have seen some reels that, oh my gracious, they're putting Maldon salt in there to cook with, and I'm just like, and I'm not trying to be judgy, but good night. This is a finishing salt. It's to finish food with. It's to sprinkle on top. It's like when you cook a steak and you finish it with a little bit of Maldon salt. It is, oh my dear, or tomato sandwich and you sprinkle a little bit of that on top. Yum. Perfect. But that is not a necessity. That is a little, like I said, it made me feel a little bougie to buy it. But I was at a discount food store, and it was discounted, and so I treated myself to some finishing salt, and it's, oh man, I'm so glad I did, because I've been working on that little pail of salt for a long time, and it will last me even longer. So yeah, that's something that I enjoy. Black pepper, that's another salt and pepper, spice, herb kind of thing that you need. So often I believe that we are afraid to season our food. Your food will taste so much better if you will season it, if you will give it that flavor it needs. Everybody's like so scared of salt. So most of the time people are like, oh, why would you buy so much salt? I don't need to use salt, but, you do your own research, but I'm here to tell you that salt's not our problem. Sugar is the problem. So if you eat too much salt, your body just eliminates it. You use the bathroom, you eliminate the salt. But when you eat too much sugar, the body's blood sugar levels elevate. You have insulin issues. It retains the salt, and then you begin to have those other problems. So oftentimes we blame salt when it's actually what sugar is doing to our body, not what the salt has done or is doing. We need salt. our bodies are desperate for salt. And when I say salt, we want to make sure we're eating the proper kinds of salt. That white table salt will do nothing for you. If you're eating the mineral rich salt like Redmonds, it's going to benefit the body fantastically. So much so that I even put salt in my water, because that salt is it's giving me electrolytes that my body needs, and sodium that my body needs. All right, our next list. Oh, I never finished. I got too busy on salt. Sorry. So our spices and herbs, including salt and pepper, we want to think about those that we use the most. I'll tell you right off the top of my head, the things I use the most are onion powder, garlic powder, chives, dill, parsley, chili powder, cumin, paprika. Those things I use all the time. And so I buy them in bulk, and then I distribute the bulk into smaller jars, which I keep over here in my drawer beside the stove. And that way I pull it out. There's my array of spices and herbs, and I can grab them to go into whatever dish I'm making. I would suggest you may even need to revamp your kitchen to reallocate things so it's a little bit neater, a little more organized and put together, so that you are more apt to using it, especially if you're not used to. I remember when I first started cooking, I didn't use the herbs and spices like I do now. These things are essential for good food, so don't be afraid to use them. But again, think about what you use and then make you a list. And if you don't have all of it, you don't have to go just like buy a pre-thing of spices. You can just get one or two at a time to build you up a supply. Thought I would just give you a little view of, there's my knives, my salt and pepper, there's my milk kefir that's brewing, bacon grease, and there's some butter behind there, and always is a fan going because it's hot. And here is my spices that I was talking about. And I had them in larger jars, but they kept getting hooked and knocked over from my drawer, so I put them in smaller ones. I don't have a jar with that in it yet, but most used spices are here. Like some biscuit cutters are here, bread scorer marker that I label with, and this is when jars are hard to open. It's one of those things. But I keep it here right by the stove, so it's easy to use, and I can get to it anytime I'm ready to season something up. All right. Now, cans and jars. Now, so I guess I would talk about this maybe here too. I do buy, and this is not like I told you I wasn't talking about protein, but I do buy canned tuna. I usually buy tuna in the pouch, basically, because it's just, Shannon goes to work each day. I need for him to have plenty of protein. I keep a tuna pouch or two in his lunchbox every day, and that way, he has it if he needs it. I also eat a pouch of tuna on my salads most every day, or every other day at least. And so tuna is pretty popular around here. I also buy canned salmon. I do like to have frozen salmon in my freezer, but canned salmon is good to have because, again, salmon is so good for you. And I know how expensive it is, but Aldi's canned salmon, it's a wild caught salmon. It's very good. And it's just, I like it. It's affordable. And so I try, when I go, I usually will buy a whole flat at a time if they have it. Sometimes you go and there's not any. are very few. So if they have a flat, I usually buy a flat. And I don't go to Aldi that much anymore, but I do like it when I go. Their frozen salmon is good too. But that's a whole nother thing. We're not talking about the freezer. We're talking about pantries today. So let's move on to condiments. All right, now, I know some people make their own ketchup. Some people make their own mayonnaise and mustard and all that. And we do too, to an extent. But my family very much enjoys store-bought ketchup. And so we have store-bought ketchup, store-bought mustard, and store-bought mayonnaise in our pantry. But this, I do not buy mayonnaise made with seed oil anymore. I do spend the extra money to buy our avocado mayonnaise because, again, I don't want those seed oils. And the ingredients are clean. It's eggs and avocado oil and vinegar and I think some spices. And so that's what we use. I do make mayonnaise occasionally, but to have a supply, I do buy the avocado mayonnaise at Costco. And I believe it's Chosen brand, I think. But let me tell you, if you are making the switch there, keep your eyes open and your alert on, because there are a lot of ones that say avocado mayonnaise, but they're still adding canola oil or soybean oil or whatever to it. So that's not going to be beneficial. You're not really helping the situation by not buying Duke's or Hellmann's or whatever that is, made with soybean oil. You just need to be careful because, man, labelers are tricksy and they want you to want their product, and you just have to watch. So I'll actually link the mayonnaise that I buy in the description. For ketchup, I do try to buy ones that don't have any high fructose corn syrup. And for mustard, I just buy yellow mustard. I do make a brown mustard it's a spicy, a whole grain mustard. It's really good. But we don't eat that like all the time. If we're having hamburgers, Shannon is not looking for that. He wants just a yellow mustard. So I buy yellow mustard. But you don't have, like, yet, I'm buying that stuff. But that's something I choose to buy. And that's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to look and choose to buy what, and then just try your best to make the best choices that you can. Baking supplies. This one can be very big. But let's try to go through this and I'll give you a few instances of what I buy. Even though I try for us not to use a ton of sugar in our house, I do have sugar in our house. I have probably a 5-gallon bucket of sugar in our house or more, because I buy bulk. We do have brown sugar in the house too. I also have molasses in the house, and that's another, sweetener and baking supply ingredient that I do keep. Not only for baking, but sometimes when my goats need it, they need like a warm drink of molasses if they're down, if they've just had babies or whatever. So I keep molasses. Baking powder, baking soda. Let's see, vanilla. Whether you're making your own or whether you're buying it, vanilla is like easily a must for me. Cocoa powder, dried milk. If you've thought about this, like if your family uses a lot of milk and say, you're not milking your own animals or whatever, or you're not getting milk from a friend, you're buying it from the store, and say you can't get it at the store, say the store's out of milk, say there's a crisis and there's no milk, have you thought about putting up some dried milk? it may not be your favorite idea, but if you really, like if your family needs milk, it's not a bad idea just to have some dried milk powder in your in your pantry. I keep talking about freezer for some reason. All right, that's just a few things. Now, if you use alternative sugars, which I do sometimes, I do have some monk fruit in my cabinet. I haven't tried that allulose, or I haven't tried that yet. People say that that's like, for anybody that's like not wanting to use sugar, it's really great. I haven't tried it yet. I do have some stevia in my cabinet because I do use that. I know there's speculation about that, but I do use it. I'm not diabetic, but I do try to limit my sugar intake. And so I do use an alternative. I don't want to use, like, I'm not going to use Splenda or saccharin or, all that kind of stuff. But I don't mind to use a bit of stevia or monk fruit, or, if I try the allulose and it's good, I might use it. And I may be saying that wrong, but you probably know what I mean if you're looking at sugar alternatives. Grains. Now I'm going to go ahead and put our flours here rather than in the baking section. So grains, I'm going to say here would be our popcorn. If you're using, I'm going to get close to you because I'm going to give you the mama face. If you're making microwave popcorn, please, please, please throw that away. It is some of the worst stuff in the world for you. Give it the boot. And I am not one that throws food away, but that food, chuck it, because it's garbage. All right, now instead, you can make popcorn on your stove, or I'll tell you the very easiest thing in the world. That's what we use, and we make a lot of popcorn around here. It's an air popper. It's so easy. You put the little scoop of popcorn in, it pops it right there. If you wanted it just popped, nothing on it, there you go. It's air popped. There's nothing on it. If you want to doctor it up and make it movie theater butter, melt you some butter, get you some good salt, sprinkle it all over there. Oh my goodness, so good. You will not miss movie theater butter popcorn, because that's not butter. It's just vegetable oil with butter flavor in. It's not butter. Rice, oats, your flours that you need, cornmeal, things like that are going to be in your grain category. So, write that down and write down what you use or what you need. Let me back up for another thing that was probably overlooked in baking supplies would be honey and maple syrup. Now, you may not use those a lot for baking and necessarily, but I think those should be in your sweeteners and baking supply category if you use those. We do use honey. I use that for our homemade Gatorade. I also use, we only use real maple syrup in anytime we have pancakes or things like that, because I just prefer it that way. Because I know that we can make some that's somewhat of an alternative for much cheaper, but I do know that real maple syrup has an incredible list of vitamins and minerals in it. So I know it's a good thing, and we don't use it a lot. But so when I do use maple syrup for anything, it is real maple syrup. For a second, I'm not sure where this go. This would probably go in your spices, but I'll tell you something that I'm like, I want to put it on every single thing I eat, and that is nutritional yeast. And it's so good, and I put it on every vegetable I roast. I put it in sauces that I make. I put it on my salads. It's loaded with B vitamins. It's just great. I love it. So that's going to go in my spice category. And again, I told you that it's not an exhaustive, list. but it's just one I thought of because I put it on my popcorn too, and that's what made me think. All right, beans are legumes. So dried beans, canned beans, either way here, are your home canned beans. You can buy dried beans by the bulk. You can can them yourself, or if you don't grow them, you can, buy them dried, can them at home, or just put them in a bucket and with a gamma lid, and keep those in your cabinet too. The reason you would just go ahead and can them yourself is because it's quicker. And this is like making your own convenience food. That's one of the reasons why you can, is because not only to preserve it, but you can, it's fast food when you get it canned and it's there ready on the shelf. We're getting close to being done on my list here. This top part of my big pantry here is where I keep like the canned things. I told you I bought a lot of beans and tomatoes because they were on sale. They were organic. There was the boys' pretzels. I have some pumpkin and some pimentos and condensed milk. I really like those seasoned turnip greens for canned vegetables. Those are really good. But there's just, up here I have like, Ziploc bags and plastic wrap and stuff like that. I usually keep black beans, pinto beans, great northern beans. I'm looking right now. I'm seeing if there's any beans that I'm not thinking about. I do keep some lentils. I like lentils occasionally. They're good for you too. But I guess that's probably pretty much most of the beans, dried versions that I keep. On my canning pantry, I always can at least or close to 100 quarts of green beans a year for us, because we eat green beans quite a bit. So beans, totally, what y'all like. But those are the things that I keep. I have green beans canned, as well as occasionally I will can black beans or pinto beans or red beans for quick and easy, dinners or side dishes. So I can make refried beans if we're having tacos, things like that, or chili. So now we'll move on to produce. And produce here is things that you're just going to keep on your shelf, that you can keep on your shelf, or even if this is not really talking about stuff that's fresh. This is, we're talking about stuff that we're keeping. I think all right, let's go with that, and then I'm going to go back to something. So, stuff that I keep that are canned produce. Like I told you a little while ago, I think I did, unless it was one that I deleted. I have in the canning pantry. No, in my dry pantry, I have some fire roasted tomatoes that I got at a local store that were organic and that were on a great deep discount. So I bought a bulk of those, and they're filling my pantry shelf. They had quite a few organic beans that were on sale, canned beans, and I bought some of those. Other produce that I have canned in there are, let me think. I think I do have some tomato sauces, just for backups. I have some canned corn. The corn that I put up every year, I don't can my corn. If I put corn up, it's going in the freezer. It's one thing that I do make room in the freezer for rather than canning. I have not liked home canned corn. I prefer to make cream corn and put it in the freezer. And by that, I'm cutting off the corn kernel, then I'm milking the corn and putting it all together and putting that in bags. And I don't do niblet corn. I don't do corn on the cob in the freezer. It's all creamed. If I buy niblet corn, it's usually fresh, or it's and then I cut it myself. I buy it on the cob, cut it off myself and use it fresh, or I buy canned niblet corn. That's just something that I do. That's kind of it for what pantry produce I have. I think so. Now, one thing we haven't talked about too is pasta. Like, if you use pasta, I guess that probably should go in our grain category. Pasta, if you use a variety, if you make your own pasta, which occasionally I do, but I do keep quite a bit of it on hand as dry because, it's easy get and go. So that, oats, rice, popcorn, and my flours. Those are I do have grain. I have flour and I have grain as well. So I have the hard red wheat and the hard white wheat, and the soft white wheat for my breads or cakes or whatever. I have those in the wheat berry form, and then I grind them. Here's the can and pantry. I have some dry goods here on the top. Mostly that is going to be jellies, jams, pickles, or whatnot. There's some canned fruit, green beans, all that salsa. Over here is some, what is that? Oh, that's cowboy candy. And then down here is some vegetable soup and a little bit of my sauce that I have started. Over here is some potatoes and pickled beets and whatnot, and then just this and that down here in the bottom. I've got to make more room for sauce because I'll be doing more sauce this weekend. There's the bottles for water kefir, kind of some of them, but that's not all of our canned goods, but that's a good portion that I keep out invisible. Dried fruits, I think I already told you, but I keep raisins and dates in my pantry. I think that's pretty much that for the dried fruits. I do on my shelf, I do make I take cranberries and I can those, and it makes kind of like a cranberry juice, and then those cranberries afterwards, they can be dried and made into craisins, if you like those things. Nuts, walnuts, pecans, cashews, whatever kind of nuts that you like and you use. Again, don't buy what you don't like or don't use. And if you have the opportunity to harvest them from stuff that you use, consider yourself very blessed, because not many people do. Coffee and tea. Another pretty big essential for most of us. I do keep coffee on hand as well as teas. As you can see behind me, that's all different types of teas that my son and husband really like. And then there's teas right here behind us. That's just a sampling of ones I have. And then I have just black tea to make sweet tea with, and I have our variety of teas there because my husband and son-in-law, sometimes my oldest daughter likes to drink tea. So, and occasionally I do, but I'm just usually drawn to coffee. Now, going back to our cans / jars, I talked about canned proteins, but we need to also talk about I can broth, I can sauces, I can salsa, and then I can fruit and pickles and things like that. If you don't, in your own jams, peanut butter, that's another protein that we haven't talked about. See, when you begin to write down your list of things that you need or that you use, then you could kind of make yourself like a revolving list. Or you can, like if you're writing down, or you have your pantry door, and you have your list of things that are there, and you see that something's out, you can write a note. I used to keep a little dry erase board on the kitchen fridge, and it worked so well. I don't know why I don't do it anymore. It's because the magnet fell off and I never got another one. But I had a little one on our fridge, and when something was out, whoever ate the last of it would write it down. Now, I'm usually pretty good about making sure we don't run out. I usually buy more of a bulk of it before we do, but sometimes, it just happens and you run out. So on that list, we would write down, hey, we're out of peanut butter. Hey, we're out of packs of tuna. Hey, we're out of this. So next time I did a grocery pickup or shopping or whatnot, I would know that and can make sure it was picked up on the next turn. But so now with all that, and I'm going to try to get on Canva here before I post this video for Saturday and make you out a little list thing if I can figure it out. And that way you can print it and you can begin your own pantry inventory or dream pantry inventory if you are just starting, and you can start working toward it. So I hope that this is something that encourages you. And again, we're just talking about the pantry. We're not talking about, big bulk storage today. We're not talking about freezer storage today or stuff to have on hand in your fridge today. This is just some dry good pantry items to help to keep you a little more organized and have what you need when you need it. I hope that this is helpful to you. Again, I hope to have that printable down below in the description. And I just want to thank you for being here and watching. And I'd love to hear your comments or questions. And that could be another video for another day. Y'all have a wonderful day, and God bless you. Bye-bye.